Okay, everybody, welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam class, punishment of the son of Drona, that's Ashwattama, and the use of ancient nuclear weapons. It sounds pretty far-fetched, doesn't it? But these weapons were thrown by hymns at the time. So sound vibration is everything. Everything is a vibration of sound. The molecules are spinning either quickly or slowly, and they create density or a more fine ethereal substance by doing that. So the floor, for an example, the hardwood floor is vibrating at a certain frequency, and the air may be a different frequency. So all these different frequencies have created what we have here. So mantra actually is meant to be vibrated correctly by the Brahmins. And in previous times, they knew how to vibrate these hymns or mantras, and they could do fantastic things with these mantras. They could actually cast and throw weapons with mantras. There's a temple in South India, a very beautiful temple. I think it's the temple of Purushottam, if I'm not mistaken, but it's one of the wealthiest temples in the world. In the basement of this temple underground, there are these big, massive doors that have these snakes and serpents, nagas, protecting them. And 2 or 3 of the doors have been opened. And that, I believe, is where they have attached the wealth of India to that substance, because it's just billions of dollars worth of ancient artifacts. There's one solid gold Sheshanaga snake with these hoods, and Mahavishnu's laying on the snake, sleeping and dreaming this whole material universe for our benefit. And it's made out of solid gold. It's priceless. We can't imagine. So there's untold jewels from ancient history there. And part of the jewels is that these Brahminical practices and mantras where they were able to perfectly vibrate these sounds. And they say that no one can open the next 2 doors, which contain untold treasure we don't know of, but they have to be opened by mantra. They're solid doors, and the only way they're going to be open is if the priest could actually chant the mantras correctly. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 7, Punishment of Drona and the Use of Nuclear Weapons by Ashwattama, son of Drona, and Arjuna in a nuclear conflict, actually. So that's quite interesting. So if you can mute, I appreciate that. And then what we'll do is, if you want to read, you can follow us along. I'll start out with the previous chapter, which Narada and Vyasadeva were having a wonderful conversation. If you didn't tune into that one last week, please go back. That's chapter 6, conversations between Narada and Vyas. And so I'll start on text 32 of the previous chapter. There's only a few verses that I'd like to read, and then we'll begin the new chapter together. So text 32 says, Narada Muni is telling Vyasadeva, after he's explained his life story, which is amazing and wonderful, he says, and thus I travel, constantly singing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called a veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. So he had meditated, Lord Krishna came, and then in his next birth, he was given a transcendental body. He could travel anywhere in the universe, and he travels constantly, setting up scenarios for the Lord to appear, and so many wonderful stories that you'll see in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada comes back again and again and again and again throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. He is a catalyst. Some people might call him a bit of a troublemaker, but he sets the stage. So he says, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart as if called for, as soon as I began to chant his holy activities. It is personally experienced by me that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nescience on a most suitable boat, the constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust, but this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of Godhead. O Vyasadeva, you are freed from all sins. Thus I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization as you have asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also. Sutta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Srila Narada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his Veena instrument, he left to wander the universe at his free will. All glory and success to Sri Narada Muni, because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead. And so doing, he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. So those are the last 5 or 6 verses in the previous chapter, which I think are quite wonderful and help us to set up this chapter as well. So if somebody would like to, they can begin reading at this point, and we'll just pass it around a little bit. We're on text 1, the son of Drona punished, in chapter 7. So if anybody would like some of that, please take a piece.
Okay, I will. I'll kick it off and then someone can join in later.
Yep.
Rishi Sunaka asked, O Sutta, the great and transcendently powerful Vyasadeva heard everything from Sri Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasadeva do? Sri Sutta said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Samyaprasa, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashram, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. Thus he fixed his mind perfectly, engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the 3 modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam, revisiting it, taught it to his own son, Sri Sukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. Sri Sunaka asked Sutta Goswami, Sri Sukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization. and thus he was pleased with his own self. So why did he take the trouble to undergo the study of such a vast literature? All different varieties of Atmaramas, those who take place in Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unallied devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities, therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. Srila Sukadev Goswami, son of Srila Vyasadeva, was not only transcendently powerful, he was also very dear to the devotees of the Lord. Thus he underwent the study of this great narration, Srimad Bhagavatam. Suta Goswami thus addressed the rishis headed by Sunaka. Now I shall begin the transcendental narration of the Lord Sri Krishna, topics of the birth, activities, and deliverance of King Parikshit, the sage amongst kings, as well as topics of the renunciation of the worldly order by the sons of Pandu. When the respective warriors of both camps, namely the Kauravas and the Pandavas, were killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and the dead warriors obtained their deserved destinations. And when the son of Dhritarashtra fell down lamenting, his spine broken, being beaten by the club of Bhishmasena, the son of Dronacharya, Ashwattama, beheaded the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi and delivered them as a prize to his master, foolishly thinking that he would be pleased. Duryodhana, however, disapproved of the heinous act, and he was not pleased in the least. Shall I continue?
If somebody else would like to read, that's fine. Whatever you want. We see Sue Davies here, and I don't know if she can hear us, but if she can, if she'd like to read, you'd be welcome to if you have the chapter up.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
I can hear you. Actually, I don't know. I have First Canto 7, verse what?
This would be chapter 7, text 15.
Oh, 15.
Yeah.
That's why I couldn't follow.
Yeah. So we're on text 15 right now. We're on chapter 7, text 15.
Okay. Where translation said Draupadi, Draupada, the mother of 5 children of the Pandavas, is it that?
That's the one.
All right. Should I read?
Please. Take about 10 or 15 verses.
All right. So, all right. This is translation. Draupadi, the mother of the 5. Let me see. The mother of 5 children of Pandavas, after hearing of the massacre of her sons, began to cry in distress with eyes full of tears. Trying to pacify her in her great loss, Arjun spoke to her thus. O gentle lady, when I present you with the head of that Brahmana after beheading him with arrows from my Gandiva bow, I shall then wipe the tears from your eyes and pacify you. Then, after burning your son's body, you can take your bath standing on his head. Purport. An enemy who set fire to the house.
Sue Davy, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're just reading the verses because we don't have time for the purports.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, we're just going to go through the chapter, and we can come back individually and read the verses. So just stay with the verses if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Arjun, who is guided by the infallible Lord, has friend and driver, thus satisfy the dear lady by such statement. Then he dresses in armor and arm himself with furious weapon, and getting into his chariot, he set out to follow Ashwattama, the son of his mat, 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 what's the word?
Martial, that means military, martial.
Okay, martial teacher.
Right.
Ashwattama, the murderer of the prince, seeing from a great distance Arjun coming at him with great speed, flee in his chariot, stricken just to save his life, as Brahma flee in fear from Shiva. When the son of the Brahmana, Ashwattama, saw that his horses were tired, he considered that there was no alternative for protection outside of his using the ultimate weapon, the Brahmastra nuclear weapon. Since his life was in danger, he touched water in sanctity and concentrated upon the chanting of the hymn for throwing nuclear weapon, although he did not know how to withdraw such weapon. Hare Krishna. Somebody can take over.
Thank you, Sue Davy. That was very nice. Thank you very much for that. Do we have Bhavananda? I think I see his hand back there somewhere. Bhavananda, would you like to pick it up?
I'll try this for a little while.
Yeah, text 21.
21. Whereupon a glaring light spread in all directions. It was so fierce that Arjuna thought his own life in danger. So he began to address Lord Sri Krishna. Arjuna said, "O my Lord Sri Krishna, you are the mighty personality of Godhead. There is no limit to your different energies. Therefore, only you can
Are competent.
only you are competent, to instill fearlessness in the hearts of your devotees. Everyone in the flames of material miseries can find the path of liberation in you only. You are the original personality of Godhead, who expands himself all over the creations and is transcendental to material energy. You have cast away the effects of material energy by dint of your spiritual potency. You are always situated in eternal bliss and transcendental knowledge. And yet, though you are beyond the preview of material energy, you execute four principles of liberation characterized by religion, and so on for the ultimate good of the conditioned souls. Thus you descend as an incarnation to remove the burden of the world and to benefit your friends, especially those who are your exclusive devotees and are wrapped in meditation upon you. O Lord of Lords, how is it that this dangerous effulgence is spreading all around? Where does it come from? I do not understand it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Know from me that this is the act of the son of Drona. He has thrown the hymns, nuclear energy, Astra, and he does not know how to retract the glare. He has helplessly done this, being afraid of imminent death." Someone else want to pick it up?
I'll take it back here. O Arjuna, only another Brahmastra can counteract this weapon. Since you are expert in the military science, subdue this weapon's glare with the power of your own weapon. Sri Sutta Goswami said, hearing this from the personality of Godhead, Arjuna touched water for purification. And after circumambulating Lord Sri Krishna, he cast his Brahmastra weapon to counteract the other one. When the rays of the two Brahmastras combined, a great circle of fire, like the disk of the sun, covered all outer space and the whole firmament of planets. All the population of the three worlds was scorched by the combined heat of the weapons. Everyone was reminded of the Samvartaka fire, which takes place at the time of annihilation. Thus, seeing the disturbance of the general populace and the imminent destruction of the planets, Arjuna at once retracted both Brahmastra weapons as Lord Sri Krishna desired. Arjuna, his eyes blazing in anger like two red balls of copper, dexterously arrested the son of Gautami and bound him with ropes like an animal. After binding Ashwattama, Arjuna wanted to take him to the military camp. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, looking on with his lotus eyes, spoke to Arjuna in an angry mood. Lord Sri Krishna said, "O Arjuna, you should not show mercy by releasing this relative of a Brahman, Brahma Bandhu, for he has killed innocent boys in their sleep. Person who knows the principles of religion does not kill an enemy who is careless, intoxicated, insane, asleep, afraid, or devoid of his chariot, nor does he kill a boy, a woman, a foolish creature, or a surrendered soul. A cruel and wretched person who maintains his existence at the cost of others' lives deserves to be killed for his own well-being. Otherwise, he will go down by his own actions. Furthermore, I have personally heard you promise Draupadi that you would bring forth the head of the killer for her sons, of her sons. This man is an assassin and a murderer of your own family members. Not only that, but he has also dissatisfied his master. He is but the burnt remnants of his family. Kill him immediately." Sutta Goswami said, although Krishna, who was examining Arjuna in religion, encouraged Arjuna to kill the son of Dronacharya, Arjuna, a great soul, did not like the idea of killing him, although Ashwattama was a heinous murderer of Arjuna's family members. After reaching his own camp, Arjuna, along with his dear friend, the charioteer, Sri Krishna, entrusted the murderer unto his dear wife, who was lamenting for her murdered sons. Sri Sutta Goswami said, Draupadi then saw Ashwattama, who was bound up with ropes like an animal, and silent for having enacted the most inglorious murder. Due to her female nature and due to her being naturally good and well behaved, she showed him due respects as a Brahmana. She could not tolerate Ashwattama's being bound by ropes, and being a devoted lady, she said, release him, for he is a Brahmana, our spiritual master. It was by Dronacharya's mercy that you learned the military art of throwing arrows and the confidential art of controlling weapons. He, Dronacharya, is certainly still existing, being represented by his son here. His wife, Kripi, did not undergo a sati with him because she had a son. O most fortunate one who knows the principles of religion, it is not good for you to cause grief to glorious family members who are always respectable and worshipful. My Lord, do not make the wife of Dronacharya cry like me. I am aggrieved for the death of my sons. She need not cry constantly like me. If the kingly administrative order, being restricted in sense control, offends the Brahmana order and enrages them, then the fire of that rage burns up the whole body of the royal family and brings grief upon them all. Sutta Goswami said, O Brahmanas, King Yudhisthira fully supported the statements of the queen, which were in accordance with the principles of religion, and were justified, glorious, full of mercy and equity, and without duplicity. Nakula and Sahadev, the younger brothers of the king, and also Satyaki, Arjuna, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, son of Devaki, and the ladies and others all unanimously agreed with the king. Bhima, however, angrily disagreed with them and recommended killing this culprit who had murdered sleeping children for no purpose and for neither his nor his master's interest. Chaturbhuja, the four-armed one, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, after hearing the words of Bhima, Draupadi and others saw the face of his dear friend Arjuna, and he began to speak as if smiling. Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna said, "A friend of a Brahmana is not to be killed, but if he is an aggressor, he must be killed. All of these rulings are in the scriptures, and you should act accordingly. You have to fulfill your promise to your wife, and you must also act to the satisfaction of Bhimasena and myself." Sutta Goswami said, just then Arjuna could understand the motive of the Lord by his equivocal orders, and thus with his sword he severed both hair and jewel from the head of Ashwattama. He, Ashwattama, had already lost his bodily luster due to infanticide. And now, moreover, having lost the jewel from his head, he lost even more strength. Thus he was unbound and driven out of the camp. Cutting the hair from his head, depriving him of his wealth, and driving him from the residence are the prescribed punishments for the relative of a Brahmana. There is no injunction for killing the body. Thereafter, the sons of Pandu and Draupadi, overwhelmed with grief, performed the proper rituals for the dead bodies of their relatives. So there's some things we can go back over in this chapter, but if you don't mind, I'm going to read a little bit of chapter 8 because it's a carryover from this chapter. So I'm just going to read just a little more because it continues with this train of thought. So in the prayers of Queen Kunti and Pariksit Save, which is the next chapter, chapter 8, text 1, Sutta Goswami said, "Thereafter the Pandavas, desiring to deliver water to the dead relatives who had desired it, went to the Ganges with Draupadi. The ladies walked in front. Having lamented over them and sufficiently offered Ganges water, they bathed in the Ganges, whose water is sanctified due to being mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. There sat the king of the Kurus, Maharaj Yudhisthira, along with his younger brothers, and Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, and Draupadi, all overwhelmed with grief. Lord Krishna was also there. Citing the stringent laws of the Almighty and their reactions upon living beings, Lord Sri Krishna and the Munis began to pacify those who were shocked and affected. The clever Duryodhana and his party cunningly usurped the kingdom of Yudhisthira. If you don't know this story, you have to go back to the Bhagavad Gita, where the very first one we did describes how this all came about, how Duryodhana cheated the Pandavas out of their kingdom. And so it says they cunningly usurped the kingdom of Yudhisthira, who had no enemy. By the grace of the Lord, the recovery was executed, and the unscrupulous kings who were joined with Duryodhana were killed by him. Others also died, their duration of life having decreased for their rough handling of the hair of Queen Draupadi. This is another great story. In a gambling match, they were cheated literally out of their kingdom. They were cheated out of their wife was insulted. Oh, it was terrible. So this is one of the reasons why all of this Bhagavad Gita was spoken, the Battle of Kurukshetra took place. So after this, Lord Sri Krishna caused 3 well-performed Ashwamedha Yagyas, which are horse sacrifices, to be conducted by Maharaj Yudhisthira, and thus caused his virtuous fame to be glorified in all directions, like that of Indra, king of heaven, who had performed 100 such sacrifices. Lord Sri Krishna then prepared for his departure. He invited the sons of Pandu after being worshipped by the Brahmanas, headed by Srila Vyasadeva. The Lord also reciprocated the greetings. As soon as he seated himself on the chariot to start for Dwarka, he saw Uttara hurrying towards him in fear, and this is where the next story starts. So there's another Brahmastra weapon coming for her son in the womb, which was Maharaj Pariksit. So Maharaj Pariksit is where this story is being told by the son of Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami, and he had 7 days to live, and he inquired from the sages there, and Sukadeva spoke the entire Srimad Bhagavatam to him. The second speaking was much later at the forest of Naimisharanya, where Sutta Goswami spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam again, as he had learned it from Sukadeva Goswami. So we're going to stop there. So we've covered quite a bit of ground, and there may be some questions. I don't know. If you have any, please go ahead and ask. If not, I have a few comments that I can make before we end the class. So are there any questions? Okay. All right. It's a wonderful story. And actually, it's dramatically read by my dear senior godbrother, Amala Bhakta Swami. You can find that on prabhupadvani.org. And if you'll go to that site, you will hear a dramatic reading of this story and other stories, which is very entertaining, actually. It's almost like going to a Broadway play. So we're not so expert at that. So Krishna, is this is all taking place right after the Battle of Kurukshetra, where so many millions of men and great kings all died in a great fratricidal war that was created really by Dhritarashtra. So if we go back and just kind of remember, I'll give you a short version. Dhritarashtra was the brother of Pandu. Dhritarashtra was the oldest son, okay? He was the old, yeah. So he was the oldest son, but because he was born blind, right? The kingdom went to the younger brother. And so the younger brother then died early. He actually died early. And so instead of giving the kingdom to the rightful heir, which would have been Pandu's son Yudhisthira, and the Pandavas, the 5 sons of Pandu, instead Dhritarashtra decided he wanted his son to take it. That was Dronacharya. And so Dronacharya was very, very envious of these Pandavas, and it set up all types of gambling matches. These are Kshatriyas, they're warriors. So they have a different regulation than the Brahmana. Brahmana is like the head of the body. Kshatriya is like the arms of the body, right? Vaishya is the stomach of the body, the farmer merchant, right? And then the legs of the body are the Sudra. And they serve the rest of the caste. But the head regulates what the arms do. And the arms are the administrative warrior class, right? So if that caste is not regulated by the priest to conduct godly activities, then many times they will find themselves in the mode of passion and ignorance. And in that case, they may be looking for fame, profit, adoration, distinction, money, power, wealth, like that. And so that is how this whole great story was told, because of the tension between Dhritarashtra and the Pandavas. Okay, so the Pandavas were righteous men, and they availed themselves of Lord Krishna. Krishna says, as God, I cannot engage in the fight. It wouldn't be a fair fight. So whoever wants can have my army, and whoever wants can have me as a chariot driver. That way I won't engage in the battle. So Arjuna immediately wanted Krishna, and Dhritarashtra and Dronacharya immediately grasped the armies of Krishna, thinking, yes, now we have victory within our hands. We're greater force because we've also got Krishna's army. So that's how the Battle of Kurukshetra started. After the Battle of Kurukshetra was over, the rest of the story starts to take place. And right after the battle, Ashwattama says here, kill the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi, okay, which was wife of the Pandavas. And he did that for no reason. He thought Dronacharya would be satisfied if he did that. But Dronacharya was not satisfied at all. Why kill sleeping children? They're not offensive. They're not on the battlefield. Back in those days, by the way, back in the ancient time, battles were much different than they are now. Battles were fought on a battlefield. Okay, they were fought by Kshatriya warriors who were trained to fight with equals, right? So they were trained to fight with equals. They were not bombing the cities like we do today. They weren't using people as human shields to protect themselves. They weren't fleeing the battlefield. They weren't hiding. They were fighting in the open as honorable warriors, noble warriors. And there was a time when the battle started. The conch shells blew, the battle raged. And then there was a time for the battle to be finished at the end of the day. And everybody went back to their camp. They took the bodies and did whatever they had to do, clean the battlefield. And the next day, in an organized fashion, the battle would start again. And it was fought by equals. If one of the soldiers, warriors, was fighting another warrior and he dropped his weapon, he wasn't mercilessly killed while he was trying to pick up his weapon. He was allowed to regain his weapon and fight honorably. Right? So this was a religious war. This was a war that was fought really between true good and evil. And it was set up by Lord Sri Krishna at the request of the demigods who approached Vishnu and asked for an incarnation. This is how it happens. If you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll see this is how it's happening again and again, that they go to see Vishnu and they say a prayer. And that prayer it evokes the compassion of the Lord. And then the Lord comes and satisfies the demigods, who are the religious force in the universe. They're the angels, if you will. And then the other side are the demons. So no one was happy with this activity. And Ashwattama, who was inexperienced at throwing these weapons, sent out a nuclear weapon, but did not know how to retract the glare. And so Krishna told Arjuna he also had such a weapon. And so he chanted the mantras. The first thing they do is touch water, purify themselves. And then they evoke the weapon by the mantra of choice. They can take weapons like arrows and empower them with the Brahmastra weapon as well, which was the same thing that was getting ready to happen to King Pariksit. There was a arrow sent by Ashwattama that was charged with a Brahmastra weapon, which was going to abort Pariksit Maharaj, who was about to be born, holy king, about to be born into the world. So Krishna actually came to his rescue. We'll talk about that with his Sudarshan chakra disc. That's another story. So, and we'll read that one next week. But he says, he gave Arjuna a conundrum. He said that a friend of a Brahmana is not to be killed, but if he is an aggressor, he must be killed. All these rulings are in the scriptures, and you should act accordingly. And you must fulfill your promise to your wife to cut off his head where she can stand on it and take her bath. You got to do that too. And you must also act to the satisfaction of Bhimasena and me, which is to kill the man immediately. So Arjuna is faced with these impossible situations. And he's thinking what to do. But then he realizes what Krishna is trying to get across to him, and he cuts the top knot with the jewel. And he humiliates Ashwattama And in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. So now Ashwattama has been humiliated. He's been driven out of the camp. Okay? And as a result, now his life is finished and his fame is finished, right? And his reputation is finished. So he was able to kill him without killing him. What a brilliant, brilliant, Arjuna's mind was able to grasp that. It's really amazing, how that happened. So in all of these arguments, I could just see this in a Steven Spielberg movie. Couldn't you guys see this? Where Arjuna's, he gets Ashwattama, he bounds him in ropes, right? And he drags him back like a dog or an animal before Draupadi. And she's so merciful and kind with all the attributes of a holy, gentle lady, and can't stand to see Ashwattama humiliated because he's a priest. She said, this is our spiritual master. How is it that you're doing? Please release him immediately. So this is after she was completely suffering by the loss of her children, and Arjuna pacified her by saying, yes, I'm going to go out and take his head and bring it back to you. She was happy to have that done. But after she saw him, the compassion, natural compassion in her heart welled up, and she said, release him, release him. He is a Brahmana, our spiritual master. So this is the qualities of a holy woman, of a real devotee of the Lord. So if we go back a little further, we see that there are principles in religion that people are not following in today's world. A person who knows the principle of religion does not kill an enemy who is careless. So for an example, they don't just see an enemy in a compromised position and just go kill it. That is not honorable. The second thing is they don't kill an enemy who's intoxicated, because it would be below a noble Kshatriya to take advantage of someone in that state. They want a fair fight. They won't fight someone who's insane, mad, asleep, or even afraid. If you're afraid, they won't punish you. Or if they're devoid of a chariot. Nor do they kill a boy, a woman, a foolish creature, or a surrendered soul. Ramchandra in the Ramayana said that anyone who lays down their weapons and surrenders, that he will personally protect them from all comers. And no one can defeat God. God has all, I believe it's 64 attributes in full. No one else does. And so God is the one without a second, the one without any equal. The origin of all things have expanded from Krishna. We know that in the Brahma Samhita, Brahma explains that to us. And he says that Krishna is the one without a second. He's also known as Govinda. So they don't kill a foolish creature, surrendered soul, a boy or a woman. Now we see there are no religious principles. There are no regulations, and people are simply killing wholesale. And we're seeing that every time we turn on the television today. So the problem in the world is sectarianism, party spirit, nationalism, okay? The problem with that is then one camp is the enemy of another camp. So we have a tendency to want to create these tribes or camps. And what happens is then any other camp that doesn't see things the way you see them, or buys into the dogma of your particular sect or whatever it might be, then is an outcast. We've seen this happen in all sectarian religions of the world. And we're watching it today. People are fighting, trying to establish their religion as supreme. No, my God is better than your God. Same God. We're all his children. We're supposed to love the Lord, thy God, with all thy heart, mind, and soul, strength. and love thy neighbor as thyself. What happened to that? What happened? We got power hungry. We want to control land. We want this to be mine, right? We want to have that power. We want to have that control over the population, right? And so these groups gain power through coups, through wars, through deceit, sometimes through elections. We hope they're honest. So all of this is against everything that was being taught by those devotees of the Lord who were the Raja Rishis of our history that we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahabharata, the great story of the earth. I was just seeing that someone found behind a wall in a Buddhist monastery 1,000 years old manuscripts, histories of the world. So it goes back 1,000 years in history, right? Or maybe 2,000 years. But we know that this Vedic Shastra, the Srimad Bhagavatam, goes back over 5,000 years and was written down by thoroughly honest holy men who were in a state of trance and received this information from that place of purity. And they wrote it down as they saw these histories. So we're being blessed by having these histories and understanding how these things should be doing. You know, it says those who live by the sword die by the sword. And that's the way it should be. But not that those who don't live by the sword should die by the sword. They're not participants in this activity, right? So women, children, old men, innocent boys, people in their sleep, people are not qualified to fight, people are not equals, people are careless. We don't take advantage. Those kshatriyas, those warriors, fought only on holy principles. And as a result, they were transferred back to either the heavenly planets or in this situation, to the spiritual sky, because they were killed by the hands of a Vaishnava or by the Lord himself and his will at this battle of Kurukshetra. So I think we're running out of time, but I hope that you've gotten a better insight on some of these stories and, come back with some nice questions. If you have any, you're welcome to contact us through Bhakti Yoga Tennessee or Gayatri Dasa. You can get with me at Gmail, or you can contact us and we'll be more than happy to get any questions that you may have answered. Okay? So any other questions? And if not, we're going to go ahead and call this one a wrap. Any comments?
I was looking up the other day about how many people died in the Second World War. And I've just looked it up now because I couldn't remember the numbers. But there were 15 million military deaths. Okay, 15 million. But civilians were over 38 million. So it just shows you what Kali Yuga is all about, doesn't it?
Yeah, they call it total war, is what they called it. Total war. In other words, kill it all, extinguish all life. You know, this is what nuclear weapons would do. There would be no world left for anybody to enjoy one way or the other. It's mutual assured annihilation, right? As a matter of fact, I think they call it mutual assured destruction. It's called MAD, M-A-D. That's an acronym for it, M-A-D, mutual assured destruction, MAD. So we've gone mad. We've gone mad. We're killing women and children. We're killing innocent people. I mean, look at the news. This is not chivalry. This is not nobility. This is not warriors. You know, this is not how it should be done. If you want to fight, fight nobly. And whoever the victor is, accept. That's how that has to work, right? So the great kings, the Raja Rishis, their goal was to establish the principles of religion in the world, which are based in Sanatan Dharma, not a a relative truth, but absolute truth that applies to all people everywhere all the time, right? And a non-sectarian concept. And we saw that really India never went out to try to conquer the world as conquest necessarily. The Vedic civilization was conquering the world through knowledge and through truth, which is non-sectarian. The Veda means the original knowledge. It's your right, it's my right, it's everyone's right. It's not some sectarian concept. It is truth that will give you a scientific experiment that will give you self-realization of the soul. That's what this truth will do for you. And by studying these stories, we remember the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore we become purified of all karmic retribution. So that's our goal. And I think we've done that very nicely tonight. I want to thank everybody for helping us read. Sue Davy, thank you. And, Rangavati, Bhavananda, of course, we're always very appreciative for everything you do. So that's about all we have time for tonight. Unless there's any other comment that you would like to make, I am going to go ahead.
Hare Krishna, actually. Okay. Now that you mentioned that in India, they're sharing the Vedic knowledge, and that is to refine your thoughts. They're not Vaishnava who are doing this killing. Only Shastriyas does righteous killing. And Shastriyas are those who are guided by Brahmanas. So I guess it's fair war, but because the world is not taking the knowledge, so there can't be fairness in the world, especially on the Western side. Yeah. So it was nicely explained by you. I'm happy that I'm in this class, and I will run through the passage that we read earlier. And then if there is any question pertaining to the passage, like organically, I will discuss it on the next meeting.
Thank you, Sue Davy. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, a headless body is not, it's headed for catastrophe. If you've ever seen, something that's lost its head, it's going to run around. It has no sight. It has no way to know where it's going. It's going to run into every wall. It's going to collapse. It's going to fall off the mountain or whatever. It's going to get run over. Something bad's going to happen with a headless body. And so society now is headless. There are no real Brahmin priests available much. This Hare Krishna movement, this whole International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Srila Prabhupada translated the Vedic knowledge into English so that we could create a class of Brahmins in this country that would help to guide this country. Unfortunately, most of the politicians today are not very interested in truth. They're more interested in power and their political gain. And they are certainly involved in party spirit. Party spirit causes a disunion. And so what happens in disunion is generally argument, and then ultimately frustration, and then war. So we are on a trajectory as a civilization, as humans. We're on a trajectory constantly in this material world of war. And if you go back and you study history, you'll see that there's just nothing but war after war after war. The whole map has changed every 100 years or so. If you just go back to 1400, there was no Spain. There was no Italy. There was no this. There was no that. They had other names because they were controlled by other armies and other men seeking power. That's what this all comes down to now. And so the innocents are the ones that are exploited. And we see this over and over again. So we're in a very dangerous position in the material world. And our job is, there's no way to get out of birth, death, old age, and disease as long as we're embodied. Now, at the end of our life, we want to transfer the immortal soul, which is residing in the heart, operating this machine called the pure body. We want to get out of this and transfer ourselves back to the spiritual sky, where none of these problems exist. Satchidananda Vigraha, a life of knowledge, bliss, eternality with form and relationship. That's what we're looking for. But we don't want all this disagreement here, based on my opinion against your opinion, against that relative truth, this party, this sect, this religion, fighting this religion. Look at the history of it. It's catastrophe. All of it has been a veritable catastrophe, because we've left the absolute truth. We've left the handbook called the Vedas of how to operate this material world. If we know how to operate the machine, we're not going to wreck it. If the body had a head, it would walk in a straight line. The body wouldn't be running into everything and falling into everything, bumping into one another. So this Brahminical order has to be reestablished. People have to be trained in the absolute truth from youth. There used to be gurukulas for that. Now they're being reestablished again in the world, where they go and study the absolute truth under the guidance of the spiritual master and the devotee who is purified to be able to teach like that. And then if they learn the truth and they grow up in that way, they don't grow up in a society that's just based on total consumerism, basically. You know, where they're being cheated at every moment by some company. Eat this, smoke that. You buy this car, you're finally going to be happy, right? This is all nonsense. You know, worship some material idol because they can sing well. That's nice, but that's no reason to worship them. They're not qualified for that. They have some spark of God's splendor. But imagine if they got that small spark of talent, how much greater God must be. We got to get our minds focused on the absolute truth. And by understanding that absolute truth, we can actually begin to live in this world in harmony, not only with nature, but with one another. And we can live here sustainably. And it can house billions of people. But not the way we're doing it. We're destroying our planet. We're destroying our resources. We're going to burn this thing up, and it's just going to be a desert ball, and there won't be any opportunity for life here. We're seeing that happen by over-exploitation, over-irrigation, over-fertilization, just to try to get more and more profit to pack into our bank accounts, thinking that if I had more money, I would actually enjoy life better. Prabhupada said, you can have 100 rooms in your house, but you can only live in one at a time. So what about the other 99 rooms? They're sitting there empty, so you're hoarding, and other people don't have anything. This is not a practical system, and it's designed for destruction, and it's designed for repeated war, because people are fighting over these resources and they're not sharing them. Just like we saw that Krishna had Yudhishthira do these Ashwattama sacrifices, horse sacrifices. By the way, there's no killing involved in that. We use sacrifices to kill animals and try to enjoy the taste of their flesh. This has nothing to do with Vedic sacrifices. Sankaracharya this had been allowed in India. That's why Buddha came to teach this nonviolence. And he said, just forget the Vedas. If you can't use it correctly, forget it. Just worship me. And do it with nonviolence, right? Stop killing the animals. And if we don't follow the rule, thou shalt not kill first, that's a heinous crime. That leaves a ripple in the karmic collective karma, not only of the family who did it or the person who did it or the society it was done within, but within the world. All of these vibrations that we're creating go around the world 7 times. So this prajalpa, which is nonsense talk, constant nonsense talk of nonsense subject matters that have no benefit to anyone, just like the act of Ashwattama, killing these children. Why? No one gained anything. Just heinous activity, heinous conversation, nonsense talk about so many nonsense things. All they do is bring about the degradation of the consciousness of our society. And therefore, everyone is now addicted to sex, drugs, whatever kind of musical stimulation they can get, whatever type of food stuff they think could bring them pleasure. And they're all bent on having a better car, a better house, a better wife, a better this, a better that. And they're all frustrated in their process. They're all frustrated. They should accept what God sends them as their karma, accept it nicely, thank the Lord for that, seek the kingdom of God, then everything else will be added. It won't be a problem. This is the Vedic concept as well. But we've gotten off the track, and now we've made our God money. We've made our God power. We made our God the land that we're going to kill you to take, right? This is our land. No, none of this is ours. This all belongs to God. This is a blessing. It's called the present. It's a gift. You're receiving a gift. Be grateful. Don't be greedy. Share with your brothers. What's the problem? Well, it's the mindset. It's the consciousness. We have to be trained in this knowledge, or otherwise we will be deviated from this truth, and we will go out on our own, seeking happiness in all the wrong places, doing all the wrong things, and bringing our own destruction down upon us. But this is why we're having these classes. This is why we're talking like this. We hope somebody, somewhere, will avail themselves of this knowledge, and the world can change to be the place that it is supposed to be according to the Vedas, which is a civilized place of peace, charity, worship of God, understanding of the absolute truth, protected by a noble, saintly king who follows the instructions of the head of society, the Brahmin class, who are well trained and studied in Sanatan Dharma, the eternal function of every soul. Oh, that's the whole idea behind what we're doing. So thank you so much, guys, for listening and coming to be with us tonight. We hope that this information can be shared widely and people can avail themselves of this knowledge. And then some of this nonsense that we're seeing every time we turn on the TV could stop. All right. So with your permission, I will go ahead and end this class. But thank you so much for being here. Any questions, Sue Davy, or anybody else, please don't hesitate to contact. All right? So I'm going to sign off. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Oh.
Yeah.